Gitau. Thank you for joining us. And just before we get into the discussion, to give a background of why it is important to talk about this. And earlier in the year, there was a survey that was released by the East African Institution of the Aga Khan University, giving really damning statistics about the state of integrity and affairs amongst the youth. That what it indicated was up to half of the youth in the country have no qualms making money using dubious means, and that 47% of the youth in Kenya actually admire those who make money by hook or by crook, and that 73% fear standing up for what they believe is right because of fear of retribution. So just some damning statistics that came out earlier in the year from that survey. And just to help us talk about what really ails and what really contributes to this kind of results, I am joined by the two gentlemen. And I'll start with you, Charles. Maybe tell us a bit about the National Integrity Youth. What is it all about?
Okay, National Integrity Youth, it's a movement within the university level, as per now, as the strategic plan dictates. That phase one is going to be rolled out in the university level and colleges, then go to the counties. The need of trying to come up with the movement was to fill the niche between the gap between the government and the youth. You have seen the statistics that have come out of the East Africa Institute report. Now, the report shows that 85% of the population in Kenya are the youth. Now, the population in Kenya being, the youth being 85% shows that it is a very huge number of youth. So that huge number of the youth.
The biggest population
the biggest population in the country.
Right.
So if this population in the country, 35% of them entertains corruption. Now, any report that comes out in the country, the auditors report, the EACC reports, the reports are given to open up a space for debates, to maybe change the narrative.
Right.
But what happens in the country is that we have reports being given out, but there is no debate concerning the reports. There is no shining way of what we are going to change from the previous report. Now, the National Integrity Movement is coming in to fill that gap and making sure that the educated elites lead the front of changing the country.
Right.
We have 30% in the country now who are educated, 30% of the youth. So the 30% that is educated will lead to a knowledge-led economy that will bring a dimension that will help approach corruption, tribalism, violence in another phase. Because what we are having now, the youth are perceiving tribalism and corruption as the way to go. Now, the National Integrity Youth Movement is trying to come in and sensitize youth against corruption.
All right.
30% of the tenders in the counties are supposed to be ours. But what we are having now, some dubious means are used to access the tenders, but we can't access them. So all National Integrity Youth is seeking to do is to inform the youth, make sure that they are informed, they are educated, they understand that they have a role to play in accessing or changing the country and being a corrupt-free state.
And Aaron, did you form this movement after that report, or is it an idea that had come earlier? You say it's one that works with university students mostly.
You see, our main aim was we formed earlier than the report.
All right.
So when the report came, it in a way incorporated what we had all started.
All right.
So based on the report, it gave us the mandate or that upper hand to address the issue that in fact what we are trying to say is indeed
that it's actually solidified what you're actually working on.
Yes.
And so exactly how do you reach to the youth?
Currently we are carrying out an online campaign whereby we try to bring on the celebrities, all stakeholders to marshal the youth support so that the youth are sensitized about corruption, integrity, good governance. So, for example, currently we have university tours. So, for example, on September we shall be having like an official launch of the campus tour, but of now, those 12 universities chapters have their own campaign So we are rolling out from September, our campus tour, starting with Strathmore, then Kenyatta University, and Moi, and the others follows.
All right. And Charles, even from that report, which I believe as a movement you've versed yourselves with very, you know, in an in-depth kind of a matter, that the youth that we are talking about here who were part of that survey, who are part of, you know, decisions or need to be part of these decisions, many of them are actually in rural areas. Some of them are not in campus. Are you reaching out to just the youth in the campus, or are you also reaching out to those outside the universities?
Okay, that question is, I can answer in 2 dimensions.
All right.
We have, in the same statistics, you have seen that 55% are concerned of unemployment rate. So in this 55%, it means that there's a combination of the graduate and the people who are still in the rural areas.
Right.
So this means that we have to go to the grassroots level and start engineering a campaign from there so that it can revolutionize the whole idea of trying to fight corruption as a youth and not as the educated elites alone in the universities. So we have tried to come up with mechanisms that will engage the youth in the rural areas. We have our point contacts at Nyandarua. Nyandarua County, we launched last week our point contact. There are some guys who are working on strategies to launch our offices there.
Right.
We have our point contact at Bomet. We have our point contact at Kiambu. We have our point contact at Homa Bay.
All right.
So these counties have already engaged and they are working on mechanisms to make sure that they establish an office that will be due learning to make sure that the youth are linked to the system that will assist them to make sure that they fight corruption and be able to access the jobs and tenders that they want. Yeah.
And in your, just as young people who have also interacted with fellow young people, as you seek to sensitize them on these matters, what would you say are some of the, you know, drivers of such, you know, taking to corruption and not having issues with corruption and bribes? Actually, one of the statistics, if I can see here, that 35% would readily give or take bribes. What are some of the contributions to this kind of mindsets that our youth have, Aaron?
You see, from the perspective, my own perspective is because earlier on the report it stated that 55% of the youths are unemployed. So from that fact that employment is 55% among the youths, it in a way encourages the youth that corruption is the only way to make their ends meet. So therefore, even from the perspective there, whereby the youth lack the moral role models, you see, because based on the research, it is found out that 75% or rather 73% of the youths are like they carry out or they perceive those who are corrupt as their role models because of the easy way of getting the funds. So because of many contributing factors are maybe hard economic times, you see, because people are struggling to make their ends meet.
Okay, I would like to contribute to the answer of Arnon. And one of the perceptions that the youth have acquired currently because of that notion of corruption, for me, my research was that since 1962, we have been undergoing an evolution. We acquired independence, yes, but the independence that we were given was colonial independence. But after the colonial independence, our forefathers failed. They failed to give us something we call moral virtues. And the moral virtue, here I mean, the major communities in Kenya, that is the Kikuyu and the Luo, they marshaled and they accumulated wealth due to greed. Now, the public greed that caused the grabbing of wealth have now been replicated now. Now, what is happening? We have rich people in Kenya within the Kikuyu sector. So the youth who are coming on are trying to take over from their role models.
Also, you're trying to say there's some ethnic, groups that have been advantaged over others, and then...
So the main issue here is, one, it's the role model we have copied from, who are leading us from nowhere, and then again it is it is in our social psyche. The corruption have come to be, it is now in our fabric, that when you're not corrupt, you're stupid. In fact, one day I was talking to a youth.
There's no other way to go about it.
There's no other way. When I talked to some youth in Kiambu, they were saying that if you get a position, it's your time to eat. Make sure you marshal well. Come out here and drive big vehicles, because now, after that, when you come walking, we see you as a fool, as someone who did nothing in that position.
You had an opportunity that you let go.
You let go. So that social fabric that have been acquired by the youth is what we need to eradicate. But the moment we cannot eradicate that by having systems in Nairobi, that is the EACC. The EACC is part of the structure, but we need to come in as youth. That is what happened in Singapore. That is what happened in Turkey. Not a revolution, but a movement to make sure that we change, and the change we want for the society should be done now.
But Charles, you raise a very important issue, that this has become, a moral fabric. It has become almost second to life, how we perceive things and how we perceive wealth, and actually the process of amassing wealth. Then how exactly do you change this kind of fabric? What particular strategies? If this is my way of thinking, how do you get me to change my way of thinking?
I'll answer your question on one way, that you cannot change a man to fit the narrative, but you can change the narrative to fit a man.
Right.
So we are trying to change the narrative and taint the corruption in a way that it is failing our economy. Now, when you go to the rural area now, let me take an example of Kiambu. Kiambu is, I come from the county of Kiambu. Now, Kiambu contributes, I think the population of the youth in Kiambu is 40%, according to the last 2014 statistics.
Right.
Now, if the population rate of the youth in Kiambu is 40%, that means we have a potential to have sustainable development for the youth. But now what happens there, you have the youth are reluctant, because they know the people will get to the system, accumulate wealth, and distribute to some few guys. So by changing the narrative, I mean here, when you go to the youth in Kiambu and tell them now, you have Uwezo Fund, you have Youth Enterprise Fund, you have NYS. Now you tell them now, these systems are the systems that are set to benefit you and give you sustainable development. Now when you educate them that way, tell them that we have Ward Development Fund. In fact, some of the youth don't know that we are having Ward Development Fund. We tell them that this is how the money is being embezzled. You know, the auditor's report can be very good and moving.
Right.
But nobody on the ground who is able to show the nitty-gritties of how the money is embezzled. But when you go on the ground and show the youth the money, how the money is embezzled, now the youth will come up and realize now it is time we take stand and be able to guard our rights and freedoms, because now that is the way that we can change the narrative to fit the people.
Right.
You see?
Right.
Yeah.
And Aaron, so he talks about educating the youth about alternative ways. For how long have you been doing this campaign, and are you seeing some sort of response to this kind of civic education?
We had just started, because the movement was formed on January this year. This year. So far we have made some progress, because based on our earlier similar interview like this one, we receive calls from the youths outside.
Right.
So whereby we were invited, for example, last week, part 1, we were invited by the Jubilee Youth League to go and address their meeting to educate their youths on on the importance of the youth or the political class, so that they provide that political will in the fight against
Right.
corruption. So, and also we were also able to to receive some corruptional cases whereby, based on our ability, we were unable to address, but we referred them to the EACC.
All right.
Because we, for our own, we are like, we create awareness on the corruption. But the issue of prosecuting or investigation on corruption, we refer to EACC. So we were able to direct them to the EACC website,
Right.
whereby they can report online or physically present themselves at the EACC offices countrywide.
All
So from our own perspective, though we are young, we have been able to make some gains because based on our few interviews
Right.
here and there, we were able to get some feedback from the ground. So we were projecting that even after we make the university tours,
Right.
it seems the university tours, we aim at recruiting more ambassadors
Okay.
for the fight against corruption.
All right.
So that one will help us in our phase 2, whereby by our strategic plan, the phase 1 is for the universities, colleges.
And let's just hold that thought, a very important discussion, and we'll come back to talk about the first phase and the second phase, what exactly you're trying to do, a very important conversation for the Kenyan youth also, and to talk about the actual involvement in leadership. You know, there's one, how we challenge the leadership, but that's also you know, taking leadership. And so we'll continue with that conversation. Let's first take a short break and continue with that later. Well, welcome back, and thank you for staying with Weekend Express. We are talking matters youth integrity following that damning report that was released earlier in the year, just showing that up to 50% of Kenyan youth are willing, you know, to make money using dubious means, and that 47% actually admire those who make money by hook and crook. And just to discuss these issues and put this state of affairs into perspective, I am in studio with members from the National Integrity Youth, and we've been discussing these matters, Aaron and Charles. We continue with that discussion, and just to talk about involvement of youth in leadership. And Charles, we don't see so many youth aspiring to go into leadership positions. And from your position, having interacted with youth, what are some of the reasons why?
Okay, some of the views from the youth perspective have been dynamic because some of them say that politics is dangerous. Some of them say that politics is a waste of time. They don't see the need of participating in the political arena. Because the reason is, I think, from the talks that we do have with the youth, it is lack of role models in the political corridors. Now, if some of the role models that we are having are the people who we are seeing now in the scandals that we can see starting last week, then it depicts a bad picture for a youth who is aspiring to be a member of parliament or to represent a certain region. Because it is only someone who is educated, who is civilized, that you cannot do some things in the current 21st century. So for the youth, the political arena to them, it becomes something that is not good, it's not cool. It's like, you know, initially, like in 2007, youth were saying that farming is not cool. So now politics is becoming uncool because of some of the issues that we are seeing.
But if 85% of the country is made up of the youth, then of course there is need to have youth who are actually, you know, steering the agenda of the country forward, and perhaps a fresh crop who are not, you know, kind of marrying with this vices of corruption and all that. So how do we encourage more youth to participate, you know, to take the bull by the horns? Like somebody said, there's that quote, if you want something done, then do it yourself. Be the change you want to see. Be that change in leadership that you want to see. What needs to be done, perhaps, to encourage our youth to participate, be part of the action and not be on the sidelines?
You know, once a French philosopher said that a society of sheep, a society of sheep begets a government of wolves. Now, by this, they meant that the society that we are having now, that's the sheep of the youth, should get near to the government so that they can control the systems
and challenge authority
and challenge
also.
them. Because now we are having a system that is not questioned by the youth. The old elites, the old people who are controlling the political systems here, they are stuck there. So for us, the people who want to get into politics as a youth, not particularly us, because we are not political, the ones who want to get into politics, I think that they should be encouraged. Time is it's of age now. We have a senator from Kericho who is 30 years.
Yes.
We have Sakaja who is also not, he is also young. So we have the association, I think, Young Parliamentarian Association. So most of them, I think for the MCA dockets, starting next year, we'll be having youthful.
So it's opening up.
Yeah, it's opening up.
Opening up.
Yeah.
All right. And Aaron, before we went on break, you were telling us about, because it's interesting to know how exactly, what are the necessary steps to take to change this narrative with regards to how the youth's outlook on economic affairs and, you know, integrity issues as a whole. And you are telling us about, you know, the phases that you're going to take as, you know, the National Integrity Unit.
Yeah, you see, for us, we are phased out our activities so that we maximize our potential based on the limited resources and such kind of things. So in our phase one, we are targeted the universities, colleges, and tertiary institutions like polytechnics and such kind of thing, institution. So the main aim of phase one mainly is to source fund first to facilitate our campus tours and creating awareness in these facilities.
Right.
So in the first one will focus mainly to recruit ambassadors who will be
Like
who will be
spreading the
important
message.
at phase two, because you see phase two targets the counties whereby we will cut out the need for those who are uneducated,
Right.
those people.
Those
So
who are
you
not
see-
in the universities, which you start with at phase one.
So you see, from our own society, we normally perceive the university people or those who have higher learning level, who are attain higher learning, to be role models in the society, and they all that persuasive influence. Yeah, you see. So we want to use these people to advance the campaign against corruption, because corruption is really eating on our society. Because for us, you see, the last time when we were growing up, the bread was like 10 shillings, 11 shillings, but nowadays it is 50. So we want to maximize the potential of the university people,
Right.
or those who have higher education,
Right.
to create an impact in the society, because they know, they know what corruption, the effects of corruption in
Right.
the society.
Right. And Charles, as a movement, are you mainly focusing on corruption as you deal with the youth, or what is the bigger picture?
Okay, the bigger picture of this is, one, the most important of all is corruption. That is the first one. But the second one is the participation of the youth in policy making and the rule of law. By rule of law, I don't mean politics. You know, once a certain economist said that politics is the superstructure of economics and social structures. So without a good political structure, we lack good social and economical pillars.
Right.
Now, the youth, when you welcome youth on board and come up with a channel like the debate that we are going to air starting September, that is in Kenyatta University, with 16 universities on board. We are going to discuss as educated elites, what are we contributing to the Constitution?
Yeah.
How is the Constitution that was inaugurated affecting the youth? Is it in a positive way or in a negative way? We had the president of the South Korea come to Kenya. When she came, the fact that I saw, in fact, in the Standard newspaper, that we were at par with Korea when we gained independence. In fact, we gave them cash
Right.
to ignite their economical pillars. But the issue is, now we are lying behind, far, far, far behind. The question is it that we had a slow development in our economy? No. It is the structures that are on board that are failing people. So the bigger picture here is trying to get the youth who are young in age, young in spirit, the new majority who are going to mark change. Change that is going to be evident. So the youth, the youth can only be effective if they are contributing to their country. So we are welcoming all the youth from all the regions in the country. We have some youth from France and others from USA who are Kenyans, and they are contributing to the movement.
Right.
So we are trying to tell anybody who is a youth and below 35 of age, you should come on board. Let's discuss. Let's invite these delegates and the vice president and all those people who are in the leadership position.
Right.
Let's air our views. These are our grievances in a more benevolent way. So, the brand that we are calling here, by the way, our brand is crisis. We have a crisis. From the political system, we don't mean to say that we don't have a legitimate government. We have a legitimate government. We have a legit opposition. But the question is, the opposition and the government should sit down and see how to deliberate on the issues of the youth.
Right.
As they negotiate on the IEBC issue.
Okay, and of course, the issues that you try to address, such as corruption and the rule of law, there are institutions that are in place to deal with such issues, such as the EACC. Are you working with such institutions, or is this a completely independent force?
You see, for our work, we were trying to subordinate what they are doing, because from the perspective that from the research, you see there is that information asymmetry. So, like the people who are involved know the information, but the people down there don't know what the function of EACC. Because you find in a society, some people may not be aware of what EACC entails, or that procedure on how to get your issue addressed by EACC. So we have come in to fill in the gap between those bodies and the common mwananchi. So we are like
You're
the
like
bridge.
a bridge. All right. And what about with local leadership, perhaps the county governments and all that?
The county government, for instance, let's say Bomet. We have the youth president from Bomet, and we talked with her some time last month, and they are so proud of the initiative, and in fact they are coming on board. So that is why I said that we have our point contact from Nyandarua, we have our point contact from Bomet, Homa Bay, Kiambu. So these counties that I named are trying to coordinate with the county government so that we can initiate a debate within the county levels and now start changing the narrative so that we can negotiate on the youth. In any platform in the country, even in the states, you have to raise your voice high till it's known. Because now when you sit down and relax, there's nothing that comes easy anywhere. So in the county levels, we have identified our point contacts that will enable us to negotiate the youth issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it's not all bad news from that report. There was a positive, a report there that 70% of the Kenyan youth actually believe that they have the power to make the difference. How are we tapping into that, Aaron?
You see, from what I had said earlier, there is that information asymmetry. So if you see, if 70% of the youth believe that they can make that change, also the report says 62% believe that are prone to election malpractices, that I can bribe you to
Yeah.
vote for me. So from that perspective, if they
Or so that they believe they can make a difference,
Yeah.
but would use dubious ways to get that opportunity.
Yeah. So if we educate the youth, or if we educate the youth that we want leaders based on their manifesto, based on what they can deliver, not what they can give us. Because the youth, because as I had earlier said, because of the unemployment, yeah, the youths try to make ends meet. So they only see the present, whereby
Right.
I can give you 50 shillings to vote for me, but you don't think of the next 5 years. So if the youths really believe, which I do also believe that I can make the change.
All
Yeah?
right.
So if the youth all that principle that we can really make the change. So the youth must shun from that election malpractices to vote in people who can be accountable to them.
Okay.
So we want a nation whereby they start servitude. We elect people, or we elect people to deliver to us.
All right.
Yeah. You see, the system now is, you see, I give you some money to
Then you
vote for me.
bring
So
me.
when I go in there, or I acquire that position, I recover my what I gave
Quote
you.
unquote investment.
Yeah, my
Right.
investment.
All
So
right.
there is no that there is that accountability disappears.
It's not there,
So
right.
we want a situation whereby it's like we are employing people.
And they are accountable to you.
They are accountable.
Right. And maybe as we wind up, what do you envision would be the steps or the measures that would be taken by yourselves or collectively as a country to ensure that we have a youth that stands up, to hold their leaders to accountability, and two, that actually has a measure of integrity, that they, and having a degree of appreciation of right and wrong, and lead, and a youth that, wants to be part of a future of Kenya that is corruption-free. What are some of the measures individually and collectively that you think need to be taken, Charles?
One, I'll answer that in a wide way.
Right.
So one, I said it is in our social psyche, it is in our social fabric. So one, individually, you'll have to take it to yourself and have the moral virtue of saying the good and the bad.
Right.
So when you distinguish the two, then you can know that you will fight corruption from your own angle. Then the collective part, right now we have 2,000 students on board. That is the members of the National
Of the
Integrity.
movement.
Yeah.
Right.
In the 11 universities. That is within 4 months. So we are talking, after the tour, we'll be having about 1 million. That is our target. So the collective will be going to the structures and questioning the structures. Unless we ask for accountability from the leadership structure,
Right.
surely we cannot get it if we just keep quiet and wait. So that is one. Another thing that we are having, the society now is divided into the tribal lines. As you can see, in the movement now, we have diversity in our linguistics fields. He's a Kalenjin, I am a Kikuyu. The SecGen is a Kamba. There are ladies there who are Kambas from Mijikenda and others from
So
Coast
it's
region.
diverse.
It's diverse.
not- yeah.
So we are trying to represent the whole country from different regions.
All right.
So the representation will be that we are not Kikuyus, we are not Kalenjins, we are not Luos, we are Kenyans. So tribalism, we are going by the quote, tribalism ni ufala. So by tribalism ni ufala, we mean tribalism is stupidity. So, and it
Oh, I
should
saw
not
that
be
somewhere
encouraged.
actually on social
Yeah.
media.
It
Yeah.
should not be encouraged in the country now.
Right.
We are on the 21st centuries. We should be dealing on issue about unemployment rate, terrorism, development, industrialization,
All
you
right.
see, education, eradication of poverty. But what we are fighting now was being fought in the 19th century. That is tribalism. So it has come of age that the youth should appreciate that it's a new era,
All right.
it's a new age,
All right.
and let's embrace change.
Okay, so
and
what the active measures here you say would involve, you know, sensitization
sensitization
and all that.
and also moving as a group
Okay.
to question and ask for accountability.
All right.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, gentlemen. We have to wind up there. Our time is up. Thank you so much for coming on board to discuss matters youth integrity. And of course, I wish you the best. 2,000 membership in just 4 months means that it's indeed a movement, and we wish you the best in trying to change that narrative. So speaking there to Charles and Aaron from the National Integrity Youth Movement about that effort to change the perspective of youth with regard to corruption and governance in the country. And it is at that point that we wind up today's edition of Weekend Express. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Sharon Momanyi. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.